So I'll take the opportunity now to invite Michael Hunt to the stage. Are you there, Michael? Do you have your presentation ready?
Yeah, I do indeed.
Excellent. So I'll just quickly introduce Michael to you all. So Michael is the 3D Printing Bureau Manager and Consultant for 3D Printing Cornwall. Michael also has a lot of activities where he's been working with recycled materials. And so we've invited Michael to come and speak with us about some of his experiences on that front and also the perspective of a small to medium enterprise. And I also do believe Michael is the host of his own YouTube channel, so I'd invite you all to look up Mike 3D at your leisure and to see some of the excellent work he's got there. But for now, I will hand over to you, Michael. The floor is yours.
Thank you for the introduction, Mazar. That's great. I'll start this off as best I can. So an SME approach to using recycled materials in 3D printing. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Michael Hunt. I was born and raised in Cornwall in the southwest of the UK. I started a brand called 3D Print Cornwall about 6 years ago after discovering my love for 3D printing. There's been many highs and lows on the starting out on your own with 3D AM, especially using recycled materials. I cannot promise you a road to success, but instead arm you with information which may make you more sustainable along the way. We have helped over 500 local people achieve ideas and dreams once dreamt, but thus realized with 3D AM. Necessity drives ambition. Here this is an item we created for a local company called Aquasource Southwest Limited. Necessity drives ambition because actually the way that they were working was not efficient. We achieved a more efficient process by creating a valve which removed a ton of sand in 50 minutes using nothing but freebar water pressure. By not using electric, not having access to electric on site, freebar water pressure was what we had, and we worked with what we had to come up with a solution for the company. Just to give you an idea of the cost savings, this device on one crew saved £300 per day. And this is based on a service of 30 properties. They service 30 properties every week. £1,200 per property was saved on workflow reduction per month. This was a vast saving to the additive manufacturing industry, a vast saving to the customer by using advanced additive manufacturing. By working with businesses to identify these great ideas from within and working with businesses to expose these game-changing techniques to flourish. Selling plastic. Well, it hasn't always been an easy task and actually was far from my goals as a child. I, like maybe some of you when growing up, believed in becoming something far different from running a room full of 3D printers, printing fishing net. Dreams come true though, right? Working with a range of clients from local to global really gave us the opportunity to help turn recycled 3D printing into a valued commodity rather than a substandard one. 3D printing Cornwall for me has always been about producing a final end product. How I've gone about that over time has changed, but fundamentally it's the same. Actively working with small businesses to create products which may have been lurking in the back of their mind for a while, or an idea for work. Process managing opens doors for using other types of manufacturing at a later date, for example, injection molding. It can be a great way to home grow products and engage with the imagination of people you work with. On multiple occasions, the way we use 3D printing as a method has also had an impact on the product and overall success. For a prime example, we use concentric infill on a heart-shaped object, and by using thin walls created depth to the item and over-exceeded our customer expectations. Methods like this wouldn't usually be available with traditional manufacturing techniques. Being in Cornwall gives us a unique opportunity for tourism, but also an extreme amount of small SME businesses with great ideas, but perhaps no way of bringing those ideas to life, or can afford the expensive tooling for a small startup. But by giving the customer confidence in the market before large-scale manufacturing, it reduces the risk of outlay for expensive tooling and large batch runs initially. We must remember that in industry, in the overall goal of reducing CO2 is highlighted, if we can help someone achieve their job quicker, this could lead to an overall CO2 reduction in the workplace, whilst also providing easier ways for staff to do their job, just like the Venturi we created and showed you earlier. Locality. I believe this type of local concept or way of thinking will indeed lead to more localized manufacturing facilities like ours in Cornwall. By using recycled material and sourcing localized produced materials from waste gives us not just the concept, but the active will to change the shape and source the plastic we are using. By our customers choosing to use recycled materials, regardless of the industry, gives us a high value privatized outlet. By enabling the extra cost of recycling and spooling process, one for our councils and local communities to pay attention to. By our customer, some of the most popular industries for me have been art, retail, automotive, jewelry and casting, replication, fashion and film. Because of our origin, we are located near Ian at Fishy Filaments, which gave us a unique testing ground to see if we could make success from local waste. I'm pleased to not only tell you we did, but on a national scale, which attracted a global audience, proving yes, it can be done, time and time again. Selfridges. Being invited to Selfridges to 3D print recycled fishing net was a challenge, but a great success for our industry, and really opened people's eyes to the type of end-use product that can be produced. Having the verbal and retail backing for one of the most prestigious retailers in the UK isn't just important, it's a milestone to the retail sector waking up to the idea of a homegrown product. But what's next? Waste usage or CO2 reduction, social scale versus corporate scale. There are two ways I see of pushing CO2 reduction in additive manufacturing: on a social scale and on a corporate scale to reduce CO2 output. For example, Worth are making great headway in the USA, reducing CO2 of manufacturing by helping businesses produce high volumes of parts in-house to overall reduce logistics. The social scale is what we can see, feel, and experience day to day, and is very present in our lives. Ian Faulkner at Fishy Filaments taking used fishing nets and finding a purpose for them is an example of this social scale. Both sides are equally important, but it's down to us to do our bit. The large corporations won't deal with what we see and overall reduce the plastic used in future generations. I implore R&D into finding ways around this problem. What we see and what we feel in our towns and villages is our burden to either privatize or to pay to remove. I do believe privatizing the recycling industry to source our feedstock for further localized manufacturing can succeed, but we all have to imagine a world where our material isn't flown in from abroad. Logistics. Logistics is our only enemy. This is where my vision for localized additive manufacturing in our area is key, as the access to the product can be extremely costly to the environment through logistics. Wouldn't it be great to produce what we need when we need it, and sometimes returning the items back to the customer printed using the waste they originally generated? Assisting people in stocking. Keep less stock. Our customers hold minimal stock values to reduce wastage, yes, but to change the way the money is driven and reduce spending costs overall to have a leaner business. Warehousing, couriers, retailing. Every time a part touches these locations or goes through these systems, it increases CO2 output in every location. Where do people start? So in my experience, when customers require a 3D printer or part are required for their business, they don't just need a 3D printer. They require design time, manufacturing, marketing via using your technology to sell their story, PR, engaging in public events and networking. Have someone who matches all this criteria or can deal with each element is crucial, but in my experience, hard to find. Why? Because this is a new industry. People are slowly building teams to deal with the whole process, which is fantastic to see. The time for inserting recycled materials was now. If people followed an initial curve of using recycled materials at this very step, This building block would be ingrained into New Industry's core values of their business. Have a unique number of small businesses producing a volume of parts gives recycling a chance to thrive, vibrating a value of creativity from everyday people. Having larger corporations invest in using recycled materials and projects helps give value to the material produced by the recyclers, which drives revenue into 3D printing. Machine difference. I cannot stress enough the importance about getting to know the machine of manufacturing the item you're designing for. Limitation in manufacturing of the current 3D printers is available is clear, but by knowing the system you're using and its limits are key to success. Overhang charts for layer heights are freely available online, which can give you an indication of a client's design and will lead to a successful finish, and thus will influence the design and thus matching the manufacturing technique to the overall end-use product. There are things which over time I make workflows to deal with, but not all items can be printed in your chosen material due to machine limitations. So material selection will also hinder the design process if the correct equipment is not applied. Having the capacity to fail, not being afraid to fail. Possibly one of the main characteristics that I've had to accept with my time in 3D printing. However, creating workflows with the materials and 3D printers using this key, and no store, reseller, or manufacturer will be able to prepare you for the whole experience. I can help others not accept failure as a standard. No one wrote the rule book or a guidebook on 3D printing, and it's our generation's responsibility to bear the burden for creating and demanding certain technologies for 3D printing manufacturers to achieve more and provide the next generation of machines more aligned to our need and desires for product makers. What can we do? Use more recycled materials. Support filaments recycled and produced in the UK. Seek avenues for local waste streams back into feedstock. Work with local councils and businesses to launch new recycling processes. Create local items from waste. Thank you for your time and listening to me. A special thanks to those who have supported me along my journey, and a big thank you to those who came to listen. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you so much there, Michael. That was a very interesting talk, and great to hear those perspectives from UK SMEs and the kind of things that you've been doing and those thoughts that you have about how things could be proliferated to bigger scales for the future. That's excellent stuff. We do have some time for questions. If any of you have any questions you would like to ask, you are welcome to place them into the chat, or you can turn your camera and mics on and ask them directly to Michael. I guess I'll take the privilege then, seeing as that I have my mic on already, to ask the first of the questions. So I saw the slide which you had about Selfridges. Firstly, just for some of the audience who are not based in the UK, just to explain with Selfridges themselves, but I was interested in the types of products that you've made and the reception from everyday kind of people in buying that, and some of the feedback they gave about buying and purchasing a recycled product that has been 3D printed.
It was great. So we spent an entire week, so Monday to Saturday, in the store 3D printing live for people in store, and we were 3D printing one of the 42 different types of products we have in store via our customers. So our customers were there displaying their products, and we were there 3D printing them live. It was a great time for engagement, and the value in which you can achieve through Selfridges is more, so it gives more back into the community. But not only that, the customers that we were talking to were buying recycled products on the emphasis they were recycled, not the fact of the beauty of the materials that we were using was great, but also the investment to general everyday people to use a recycled material was vast. And the amount of people that I've spoke to since I was there that had ambitions or dreams or products or ideas that they had at the back of their mind to come forward with was incredible. and probably we've completed 10 to 15 jobs in the meantime from that event, which have been great to use recycled materials to get back into industry. So replacing a current product with a recycled feedstock. So using current tooling to change the feedstock, which is used from a standard material to a robust recycled material. So sometimes people need to know it's achievable, and sometimes they need self-validation with their eyes to realize it can be done. And a setting like that provided a great platform to do that, to speak to people and engage. There was other lots of 3D printing people there at the time. Nakami were there with a robot printing recycled PETG, and Crocs and some other high brands like that. So it was great to see more corporate brands getting involved in 3D printing on a social scale.
That's excellent. And if I may, just on the point that you mentioned about the customers having many ideas of different things that could be printed, that begs the question then of how do we leverage that voice? How do we get all those opinions and ideas and be able to proliferate that into new opportunities? Do you have any ideas how we might be able to kind of harmonize that voice of the consumer to what's going on with the businesses?
Well, I think 80% of the people I spoke to at Selfridges have never ever seen a 3D printer before. So making 3D printing more, bringing 3D printing more to the and highlight 3D printing as a general rule of manufacturing. Most people I spoke to actually thought that the whole manufacturing process was I want this item, I get 10,000 made, I get them sent to me, and I have to start a business and I have to sell my 10,000 products to make my money back. Well, actually, starting from a 3D printed item and producing in low batch quantities gives that customer the proof of concept in their idea. And if you can start making money on a 3D printed item, and then your profit margin when you move over to an injection molding stage is actually quite good. So if you can hold a value with 3D printing and then use it for investment towards injection molding, then that's absolutely fantastic, and you'll see your profit margins increase. You can either choose to pass that saving on to the customer and reduce your prices, but you've already based your 3D printed item on the costs which come with FDM printing. So it can be a great stepping stone for the customer to start on their journey of their new idea or their product.
Oh, that's excellent. I did notice, I realize you have your hand up, Joshua. There was just a question that came in the chat, which I'll just go to first. So this is a question from Andrew, and they're asking, do you use any other recycled filaments, or do you prefer fishy filaments due to the local supply?
Yeah, we, I think at the end there, I had a graph, I might have stitched through it. About 60% of our work is producing material from Ian at Fishy Filaments. The locality of that is great for us. We also use PETG, recycled PETGs, which is fantastic. I am extremely blessed to be situated 2 miles away from Ultec 3D, who are the UK's biggest supplier of 3D printing filament. Not many people actually know they exist, which would be great to give them a shout out. They initially and still produce the recycled fishing net for Ian, and give me a local extrusion company to work with, to be able to work with producing local waste into filament for myself. I understand that not many people will be located so close to a extrusion line or plastic recyclers, but I mean, recycling is geographically linked. So there's different parts in the UK which can harness different 3D printing materials. If you're near any sort of hospital, then you'll realize that the PP waste that they have is incredible. I myself aren't to the hospital system in Cornwall is quite slim, but in many areas that there's many hospitals in areas discarding large amounts of PP, which can be used. So PETG is everywhere. I wouldn't start producing fishing, or Ian. The reason why Ian isn't in London, because Ian there's no ports there. So it's about recycling the material which is which is important in that area. For example, in London, plastic bottles and PETG would be abundant, so recycling PETG in London would be preferable and can be privatized because of the cost that we can get out of 3D printing. I mean, most 3D printing people that don't profit about £300 to £400 per spool that they're using possibly aren't doing it right. So actually you can achieve the high value percentages you need in 3D printing to enable that privatized recycling process. I think that's one of the most important parts. So Aaron, Ian will be on this afternoon. Ian from Fishy Filaments is talking this afternoon, and I'll let him go into detail the full stage of what he does. So if that's okay.
So I will just hand over to Joshua for his question, but I am aware that there's plenty more questions coming in through on the chat. So just in the interest of time, we'll leave Joshua's as the last question, and I invite you to just answer those in the chat as we go along, if that's okay, Michael.
Yeah, no worries.
No, thanks, Michael, for the great talk. And what I was wondering about when you look at recycled materials that are generally very low value, and then you've gone to 3D printed products, what are some of the highest value changes you've seen with your customers?
Okay, so two great examples actually. We produce lampshades for a company called Soho Lighting. We produce them out of PETG and recycled fishing net. For me, there's some true value in these products. The people that go in to view our lampshades, they're also sold in a electrical reseller called CEF. So we get a lot of end use customers going into the store to pick lampshades, to pick things. Those customers aren't inclined to spending good money on something that they find is beautiful. If the fact that they're recycled from fishing net or PETG actually becomes an after effect, because the effect that we can get from producing lampshades is great. You talk to any lighting manufacturer, the cost of producing a mold for a lampshade is ridiculous, but we can change the design on the fly and whenever we need to. Also in the Selfridges event was Zoe Sherwood's jewelry that we make from 3D printed fishing net, from fishing net, which is also extremely popular, and that's sold in actually many parts around the world, including Japan. So actually the outreach for the recycled fishing net and jewelry, it's great. Beautiful parts can be produced from recycled fishing net. There is a stage of drying, of preparing your materials for the procedure. But if you do, then high value parts can be produced. So jewelry and lighting, I would say, are two. Homewares is just as important. We produce a range of 3D printed items for Mutiny shaving. We produce the stems and the recycled non-replaceable razors. So instead of the packets, the Gillettes, you get a Mutiny stem and you get a shield, and then you can replace the razor whenever you need to. So actually the homewares is quite a high value area, but those three areas for me are the most profitable as a 3D printing business.
Excellent. Thanks a lot for the responses there, Michael. I'm sure we could go on forever with the amount of questions that are just rattling around in my head, and it seems the audience's head. Just thank you once again for taking the time and being here with us and providing your perspective. And we will now move on to our next speaker, but I will invite you, Michael, to respond to some of the questions that are in the chat there, please, if that's okay.
I'll be around, yeah.
Excellent, thank you.